Hi, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the conference so far. For me, I was super excited about all of the releases and nice talks I saw from the community and the modules that was being developed. Today, I'm talking to you about some of the things that had been developed behind Nuxt and alongside with it when we was making Nuxt 3. A project called UnJS, which is kind of a collection of the tools and efforts that we made when we was making Nuxt 3. And we made them with the mindset to share them with everyone. I think I was already introduced. My name is Pooya. My nickname is PI0, like pi number. I love cats, sushi, and JavaScript. Always in my life, I like JavaScript. I like making packages and reusable utilities for everyone. It's kind of fun. I like to make everything simple and polished. It's like an OCD, but also for coding. I do most of my work on open source and sometimes hacking code, making some solutions which are not necessarily JavaScript, but that's another thing that I like to do. And I'm working with an amazing team from Nuxt Labs and Nuxt Framework to build Nuxt. You can follow me on GitHub and Twitter. Also, feel free to drop me a direct message to just have some chat. And here's a random picture of my cats, just for fun. Before going to the main topic of our talks, I want to take some moment and talk about what is happening in Iran, the country I'm from. It has been years that people are unfortunately don't have really basic needs that they have, and especially for women, it's a tight situation. Recently, some serious revolutions started in Iran in the event of death of Mahsa Amini because she wasn't wearing a proper outfit. And many people, especially young people, are fighting for this cause and getting killed and imprisoned. And it's all happening in silence because many of the times even access to the internet and social media is blocked there. What I would like to ask you is to take some time, follow the hashtag, and try to be their voice because that's the thing that they really need at this moment. And I really felt that I had to share this with you about this sad situation. So back to the topic. What is UnJS? A little bit about history. The idea was began on year 2018 when I was working on Nuxt and we was making the CL experience better. I came with an idea that some things in Nuxt could be improved, but well, that time we had millions of packages in npm, but none of them was enough and stable enough to be used for Nuxt. Two special packages was created by that time called console and webpack bar. And their goal was to enhance the experience of Nuxt users. When you start a project in CLI, you could see some beautiful stats. Of course, we don't need it in 2022 because Vite is super fast. We don't even need a loading bar. But projects like Consola kept there. They was super popular because they was not bound to the framework. They was powering Nuxt since Nuxt 2, but they was also open for everyone. And from that time, I think Consular until today has more than $3 million per month. And this package got super popular and also helped many other open source packages and projects to enhance their CLI. Since then, we made lots of more open source packages, and the goal was to make them reusable. So if we have same requirement, for example, for Nuxt module, for CLI, or for Nuxt core, we can use it. These packages have single purpose, so they do one thing but make it perfect, similar to Unix, which we'll talk about it later. And other than Nuxt, we wanted to benefit everyone in the JavaScript ecosystem to make it easy for them to use these solutions, to not reinvent the wheel, and have a perfect experience. And also, this helped Nuxt framework itself to be maintainable because a monolith framework and project, as it gets bigger and bigger, it makes it harder to test smaller solutions and keep the code in the same place. So this effort started from that time until today. And today we are calling it UnJS, which is like a collection of the efforts. Some packages, Clark, me, and some other contributors, we moved them from our personal namespace to a new organization, which was more placed to have them. It was first called JSList, then Nuxt Country, and when we was started working on Nuxt 3, we started to add more features. And at that time, I was thinking that, okay, what we are doing is basically we are making universal solutions. So the name comes from originally from a universal JavaScript, which was called UnJS. And then over the time, we thought, okay, many of these ideas, such as H3, are to make JavaScript universal. So when you make a package, it's not just designed for web. It's not just designed for server. It's not just designed for workers, but it's universal. But we have also some packages that are for Node.js inside this namespace. So we named it to a different definition, which was unified JavaScript solutions. And the goal became to make everything perfect and to join every effort and collaboration into one place to make things usable for Nuxt and any other framework to be used. Today, we have over 50 packages out there, which are maintained by an amazing community, and astonishing big number of monthly downloads, which is 100 million. Later, we will compare this number with some popular packages, but this is something I'm really proud today, what we made from Nuxt, effort that is benefiting many more users and people. Before going to the details of some interesting UnJS packages, explain about them and see how they enhance and power Nuxt, I'm going to describe and tell what philosophies and design patterns we are following up. Basically, UnJS packages are made for simplicity and usability. And to compare, we can just imagine Nuxt framework is like an operating system. And for an operating system to work, you need smaller modules that work perfectly together, good together, and they are glued to each other. And Unix, if you probably already heard about it, it's called to the series of operating systems such as Linux and macOS. They are following same standards, and the standards implementation of them is Unix. In a book called The Art of Unix Programming, they described about some of these philosophies and how the Unix is designed. And most of the time, we try to follow the same philosophy when making UnJS packages. The first rule is the modularity. When we make smaller packages, they have really clean interfaces, and they are designed to work with each other. That's one of the goals. The clarity. The packages, sometimes you see some amazing packages, libraries, that they work some interesting things. But if you just read their source code, it's a lot of complex code. And with this complex code comes maintenance. If you just make something but can't maintain it for a longer term, it's going to be a dead end. So most of these UnJS packages are super clear, also internally. You can just look at the source code and see what's happening. The other thing is their composition. Since we are avoiding a monolith pattern for Nuxt framework, we are making smaller packages and solutions, but they need to be composed to each other. So when we are designing smaller packages, they are supposed to perfectly work with each other as well, not standalone, but also together, which kind of made sense that we create an ecosystem of these packages that perfectly work to each other. The other thing is separation. When we're making smaller solutions and ideas, sometimes developers get somehow opinionated about how these packages should work. While with separation of concerns, every layer is responsible for doing what it's doing. But when we are composing them to each other, the upper layer, such as Nuxt, is the one that decides how these packages work to each other and how we are composing them to each other. The other thing is simplicity. sometimes writing complex code is much easier than writing a simple code. And often of time, we are struggling for making something simple but reusable. So that's the other thing that in UnJS we are often doing. There are some packages that you can say, okay, it's stupid, it's super simple to do. But behind the scenes, for designing that packages, we rewrote the code over and over multiple times to make it as simple as possible. So it's easy to read and also maintain. The other thing is that we don't make big packages, and we try to avoid it. We try to make the packages as simple and small as possible, as long as it's possible. And the only package that in UnJS ecosystem that is kind of a combination of different solutions is Nitro framework, while the others are as small as possible, instead of just growing in one package and making models. The other thing is transparency. If you want to make a package testable, everything also inside it should be as clean as everything that is exposing. So not the API, but internals should be debuggable and easier to inspect. And with this philosophy, most of these UnJS packages are transparent. If you just look at their README, you probably get an overall idea of what they are doing. Robustness. The other thing is that most of the usages should be error prone. So if there is some wrong input, they should handle it by themselves instead of just making the unnecessary problems and errors to be thrown. The other thing is representation, and it's also interesting because it's also going well with the composition and also composition API of Vue. Instead of making a complex logic, which is hard to maintain and hard to compose to each other, the unit of data that we are passing around is a context usually in these designs. And the context is something that like a data structure, and we can always debug it. And also we can always hack it easily. I'm a hacker. I like to have control over my data. And that's one of the parts in the design of UnJS. The other thing is list price. It should be exactly the way that you should expect for someone new to the package that is going to use it and learn about it. It should be as simple as it seems. So when you read the README and when you see the code, they should match to each other. There shouldn't be differences. So it reduces the learning curve. And if you want to contribute to one of these packages, it's super easier because everything is simple, and simple is hard. The other thing is about logging. As mentioned before, we are doing error handling, but the packages should not be verbose because we want to compose them to each other. And just outputting unnecessary information makes the CLI experience hard and also debugging harder. So these packages are as silent as possible, but when they need to throw an error, they are explicit and do it as soon as possible. The other thing is, as mentioned, this repairability. So they are silent, but when there's an error, we just show it. The other thing is about the developer's time. Often of the time, you see some crazy benchmarks and macro optimizations that they tend to make software a few times faster, just a few milliseconds. But we have to also consider not everything is about performance runtime. The programmer's time, programmers which are humans, is also important. So if in price of having a little bit more performance, we make the programmers to have a hard time to make something, to do something, and also maintain or enhance something, it doesn't work. So we also took into account about this economy side of the in the design of UnJS packages, and sometimes we compromise the performance over easy use. And it always comes back because if a programmer is more productive to use something, it's also easier for them to improve on their layer. Code generation, I think it's more related to the Nuxt side, and it's one of the powerful things in Nuxt because instead of letting the programmers to write every byte of the code, we try to automate it as much as possible. One of the interesting things in Nuxt 3 is the types generation. So many of the types just work out of the box. And the way that they work is that we auto-generate them for the users. The other rule is optimization. Many of the packages that we initiated in UnJS, they was super simple. They was quick prototypes. They, of course, was tested and polished, but we never take time to optimize them at the beginning. As a popular saying is that 90% of the work is worth more than 100% of the work to be perfect, but not published. So we always try to push the new ideas ahead of the time and then optimize them later. And the other thing is diversity. It's kind of hard to explain, but one thing that we know is that no one is perfect. So as a developer, when we are making some solution or some package, we just know that we are not perfect. We don't have every idea. So in the design of these packages, we have to make a way to always make them changeable, interchangeable. And in different layers, it's handled differently. And the Nuxt layer, we have a concept of hooks, which allow every developer or hacker to hook into internals of the framework and replace some parts or some logics. And it's also applied to the packages, which you can use options, many of the options, to customize some part with a better solution that if you have, which comes to the extensibility. And the other part in the design of the APIs is that they are feature-proof. So the APIs and the functions that we are exposing, they are designed in a way that they don't break often. This makes it also easier to trust on some package and depend on it because, once in a while, we don't need to remake it. Before going through some packages to explain why we made them, how you can use them personally, and about their features, some stats about UnJS. Today, we have over 50 packages. It's a lot because maintaining them, keeping an eye on all of them, taking care about the issues, about the pull requests, about making them updated, it's a lot of hard work. Well, we are super proud of having this because by this, we are making an open ecosystem for everyone to contribute and leverage from the solutions that we make. UnJS packages have over 20K stars today, which I hope it gets more as we introduce more to the users, and astonishing number of 132 million npm downloads per month. Just to compare this number, total number of downloads of Vue in addition to React per month is 97 million. And you can imagine how big this number is and how much responsibility we feel for maintaining these packages. Well, we are also super proud that we made something big like this. One of the packages that we recently created in UnJS is unbuild. For history, it was started from some scripts, roll-up scripts we had for Nuxt 2 for building the packages. Then Daniel started to refactor them to another package called Syrock. And with that package, we iterated over. And from the lessons we learned, we created something new called unbuild. Unbuild was specifically made to build Nuxt packages. So internally, we use unbuild to make Nuxt modules and Nuxt packages themselves. When you install Nuxt, it's built with unbuild. And it's a unified solution. It combines rollup with mkdist, which is another file-based builder. And also it's zero config, so you can easily use it. But I was super surprised because today I was making the slides and I just noticed over 2,000 packages in GitHub are already using unbuild, and it includes some Vite plugins as well. So I'm super proud that we made something stable like this, and I'm super proud of to the community that they trusted this package. One of the other things that we recently created is a package called changelog. Changelog is basically a changelog generator based on the conventional commits that you make to a repository. We needed this for Nuxt to generate changelogs and release notes. These scripts are almost automated. They can infer many things from the commits. They can list the contributors. And also recently, changelog has a new feature that it can handle releases as well. So it's kind of an end-to-end solution to generate changelogs and bump the versions. By the way, you can always check the links GitHub repos. They have README and more information about each of these packages. One of the other solutions is Unplugin, which was made by Anthony, and I'm super proud that we have this in our package ecosystem. Unplugin idea started when we was making Nuxt 3. We wanted to support Vite in addition to Webpack, but we wanted also to make it easier to maintain these plugins because the API of different bundlers is often different. And Unplugin is a universal and unified way that you can define a plugin. That same code works with Rollup, Webpack, and also new bundlers as we have more. And it's making it super easier to write a plugin. It benefits all of the ecosystems because when you make a solution, it's not only for Vite, it's not only for Webpack, it's for all of them. And also it makes it possible for us at Nuxt to use a reasonable amount of time to maintain all of these bundlers and also for the future. If you want to make a plugin, I really recommend you to take a look at this. One of the other solutions we made, actually Anthony made, is Unimport, which is a system for lazy users and also powering Nuxt and many other projects that makes imports automated. And but automated is not just global imports, they are smartly tree shaken. The types are smartly generated, so you can just see what utilities are available, and it comes with many more interesting features. And today it's powering one of the most important developer experience features of Nuxt 3, which is auto imports. The other thing is that when I was working on Nuxt 3, to be honest, I hated Axios because it's super popular, but it was legacy and it was against the modern environments because in workers and in Node.js side, there are natives. Native fetch is like the new standard. But I also didn't like fetch because fetch API is like a standard, but with standards come more strictness. And it wasn't handling some things like I wanted better type support. I wanted to at least throw an error for me. I wanted to also have a package that works everywhere without need to polyfill because that time there was no native fetch support for the server side and more, which you can see and read more about in the repository README. But anyway, it finally made us to make a package called OhMyFetch, which recently we renamed it to OFetch, which is smaller, shorter. And today is making it much easier and enjoyable to work on Nuxt because when you want to fetch something, you just have it. And also it does more of the stuff we want, like a certification and parsing the response. So it makes everything easier for everyone. Also, there is another package called Node.js Native, which I highly recommend you to read about it, especially if you have a custom server or Node.js project, because this package is feature-proof. It supports native and on-DC-based fetch implementations for the server. Its bundle impact is much less than the other polyfills, and it makes life easier. One of the other projects that we made alongside making Nuxt 3 was H3. Over the time, we was using Express and then something lighter called Connect for Nuxt 2. But when I started working on Nuxt 3, I just noticed that none of them are perfect. And more importantly, they are not designed to work out of Node.js. There are new amazing runtimes called like Dino and also Cloudflare workers and basically the workers that they are not Node.js, but they are also server runtime environments with JavaScript. H3 started with an API that was backward compatible with existing rollup, Express, and Connect. So we was not losing the ecosystem. We could reuse them, but it also bring a completely agnostic infrastructure that we could build Nuxt server on top of it, which is feature-proof because we can deploy it to everywhere that we want. And on top of the composition system that it supports, because unlike traditional HTTP server frameworks, which don't care about the bundle size, everything inside H3 is composable. If you use a utility, it's inside the bundle, but otherwise it's not. And it's also make it easier to scale up a project, because without having global overhead of the global middleware, we just use tools whenever we want. And just, it was not really our goal, but interestingly, it's one of the fastest HTTP frameworks in the world. You can just see in the benchmarks. And it just came for free because we cared about minimalist code. We cared about quality of the code. And just as a bonus, we just made one of the fastest frameworks. I would highly recommend you to read more about it. If you are using Nuxt, you probably already are using it. If you also want to make a server project, you can try Nitro, which is also powered by H3, but you can also directly use H3 for any custom solution you have. One of the other things that we made for ecosystem of Nuxt 3 was on storage. Over the time, some lesson learned was that persistent storage is really needed, is one of the essential parts of making a universal framework. And unstorage was the answer. Unstorage is a completely platform independent and also a multi-driver system, which works similar to the Unix, which you can combine different storages into a simplified key and value storage layer. Today, it's used by Nuxt for caching and deployment, and it works out of the box for any deployment platform, because usually it's the kind of hard thing when you want to change from one platform to other, and also local development. You have to care, okay, how is this storage on this platform? Well, using on a storage, we have a simplified and abstracted layer provided out of the box by Nuxt 3, and it just works, and you can always customize it for the custom needs. Later on, we will probably also introduce a session layer support, which can also leverage on storage and more. One of the other small examples of packages that we made in UnJS is listen. Always make things small, reusable. And listen is one of these small packages, and it has one single purpose. It just listens. You'd probably sometimes see a beautiful banner when you start Nuxt or any other framework that just listens to different addresses. But if you want to just take care about the details, there are a lot of details, like what to do when the port is not available, how to support SSL, how to copy the URL to the clipboard, how to support base URL. And all of these details are compact into one package called listen, which we easily use for Nuxt CLI. We don't need to care about how it works. It just works. And it also is reusable. So if you are making your own custom framework, whatever, you can just use listen out of the box. And it's also a complementary for H3, because H3 can be independently used for Node with a nice listener. One of the other things was C12, which is the configuration loader. You can't imagine how hard it could be to take care about every detail for loading a simple configuration. We started C12 as basically a configuration loader based on the standards that we was already set for Nuxt. Since Nuxt 2, it supports .env loading, it supports environment variables, it supports different formats of the configuration. And then one other idea came out. In Nuxt 2, we had an idea called Nuxt Extend, which was supporting to extend a Nuxt project from another. In Nuxt 3, we made it to next level. Using a built-in configuration loader that is aware of the layers, we could load configuration and all the structure with a multi-layer system and a simple extends feature. And because it's built-in, it unlocked us new features, because we can now support this system for the directory conventions, supporting different pages and different layers, for example. And it powered one of the most powerful features in Nuxt 3, which is extends. One of the other examples in UnJS ecosystem is IPX. IPX is basically an image optimizer. It's a free and open source image optimizer based on one of the best optimization libraries in the world, which is libvips, and Sharp, which is a port of it for Node.js. And it's powering Nuxt image and also Nuxt images when you deploy them to Netlify. This is one of the most used packages in Nuxt ecosystem we have. And one of the examples that how you can just make a solution and make everyone leverage from it. And because different contributors and different people are using it, it's not just exclusive to Nuxt. We had lots of more feedbacks over the time. We could improve it. We could make it minimal, but also better and better over the time. If you want to optimize your images, you probably can use Nuxt image, but if you have any custom solution, or if you just want to host it and for your private CDN, you can directly use IPX. And IPX is always replaceable with the vendor-specific implementations, which we have the drivers for them in Nuxt image. Something interesting else is untyped package, which I never talked about it a lot. It was one of the solutions that we made for Nuxt 3 to make things and life much easier. In Nuxt 2, we had to maintain different interfaces to define the defaults for the Nuxt configuration. We need to manually write documentation, and sometimes we need to write a really big file for normalizing every configuration, because in Nuxt, we believe to not break users and automate everything as much as possible. So if there is a configuration change in one of the underlying packages, we always automatically handle the changes. With Nuxt 3, came up with the idea of untyped. Untyped depends on one single schema definition, which can be Typescript. We can use comments like JSTucks and TSTucks to define the defaults, define the documentation for it, and also the normalization, which is per node. And then untyped just handles everything else. It generates the code for you, as you was talking about this code generation philosophy in Unix. Untyped just does this code generation for us. So the documentation, the configuration section in Nuxt is generated based on the same thing that is also powering the Typescript and also powering the default schema when you basically start a Nuxt application. And it made life easier for everyone. And also it's feature-proof, because in the future, we can have dynamic configurations that is coming from the modules and also added to the code. Without something like this, it was almost impossible. One of the other recent packages we have is Giget, because there was no perfect solution to clone a GitHub repository. Giget is a template downloader. I started this as a simple idea to just clone a GitHub repository. We added more and more drivers. It supports custom registries and many more interesting features. Today, it's powering Nuxt init. When you want to create a Nuxt project, basically, it uses Giget. And it's also powering other places. With this abstraction, it comes also the reusability. So on other package, if you remember, I was talking about C12, which is a configuration loader that we supported extends to it. So now what if you want to extend from a GitHub repository? Instead of making all the same code, we just reuse Giget, which was powering something different, completely different, which was Nuxt init. And C12 can also use, and is already using Giget, to extend the project from a GitHub repository. It's just became free because we made the right solutions and composable solutions. And one of the last things is Nitro, which is probably a meta framework for UnJS and a combination of different ideas. It's a serverless builder. It combines different packages to make an experience similar to Nuxt, but for the server side, you can define API routes that they are powered by H3. You can load configuration from C12, which is also extendable. You can deploy it to everywhere thanks to another package called unenv, which just replaces everything that is node dependent to not node dependent, and also more ideas. And because it's also made to be for reusability, it can be easily, and it's already easily integrated with Nuxt framework. So we are not worrying about all of the details of a server bundler, and just reusing the same solution to power every Nuxt user to have a full stack experience and deploy their front end, their front end accessor application alongside with server API with a single code base. And again, it all came from reusability and consistent ecosystem. So everything is compatible. Every experience that you have in Nitro is compatible with Nuxt. It's not a big change. I hope I could share some nice ideas with you. Of course, there are more. There is a really work in progress website called UnJS.io. I'm terrible at CSS design, so if you want to just improve it, just feel free to open a pull request. It's more than welcome. But anyway, you can check more packages in this website. And also, of course, the GitHub organization. And also keep an eye on the Twitter because we have more packages coming very soon to the public. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this talk. Here is a link to my slides. Of course, always feel free to drop me a message in Twitter. I would be more than happy to chat. And wish you the best.
Thank you. And you're not getting away from the questions, though. We still have questions. What considerations do you make when deciding to make an UnJS package versus including functionality into Nuxt core?
That's a really nice question. I wish I could use some real-world examples to do this, but it happens when we have same problem multiple times. So, one place you see there is something missing, you see, hey, it's really nice that we had a package, and you see it again and again and again. When we detect and discover a pattern like this, we decide to, okay, what is the solution? How we can make something that can solve all of them at once without adding overhead. So I think that comes with experience, with just seeing different requirements, different places, and then we came up with a solution that solves them all in once.
Thank you. Next, what softwares do you know that of utilizing UnJS packages?
So it's changing over the time. It's hard to answer the situation right now. I know for one of the examples was Next.js on Netlify, which is using IPX. I think many packages you can just see the dependence of the Consula. They just adapted it. I think that's the best place you can check from the npm dependence packages.
Thank you. And last one, which UnJS packages do you find yourself reaching for the most?
How do you mean by reaching the most?
I would say which ones do you use the most, maybe?
Well, yeah. I'm just thinking. Well, just to say, I use Nuxt the most for everything. Even when there were some situations that I was making a server, which I could use Nitro, and always I just came, okay, why not use Nuxt? Because it has everything out of the box. So my answer would probably be Nuxt. It's a strange answer, but I think that's the thing. That's the honest answer. I personally don't directly use them. I use Nuxt.
Yay! Well, perfect. Y'all, we have gone through a lot today, and Pooya, thank you again for coming up. Do you want to share something that you're grateful for? I know that you did share it during the panel, but just to make sure that I don't cut you off on that one.
I'm grateful to you and everyone that is making this conference. I'm really enjoying it.
Thank you. And thank you for being here today and contributing so much. We greatly, greatly appreciate it.